What's going on, everybody? We are going to start this live stream here. We're just trying to get set up just a little bit, so just bear with me. Um, uh, Norris, can you? Yeah. So once you jumped out of from your phone, log into Instagram on your phone.
Okay, I'm on Instagram on my phone.
Cool. Okay. So go ahead to go to my page real quick.
Okay, I'm on your page. Eric J. Velasquez for Texas, or that's a different one?
Yeah, that's me. So I'm
Okay.
going to start the live stream right now, and you should see it pop up. If you don't follow it, just follow it right now, and then go back to your home page and you should see me on the live. What's going on, everyone? So we're just trying to get started here. Sorry for the late start. We're having some technical issues, so just bear with us. So once you see my my live stream on Instagram, just go ahead and go into the room, and then I'll invite you into the I'll invite you into the live stream on Instagram. What's going on, everyone? And again,
I see interview shout outs and all that. I don't see a place to go in the room.
You see the
I see it now. It says live. Cool. I got it.
Awesome. Hello, D. Yes, we're starting. Sorry, we started a little bit late. We're just trying to get everything set up. Hello, D. Can you? Yes, we're starting. Sorry, we started a little bit late. We're just trying to get everything set up. Can you, Norris? Can you maybe put on headphones on this one for StreamYard for our live stream on the?
I have on headphones.
On this one,
on the
right
StreamYard
okay.
one.
Cool. Okay, one. And then let's turn down the volume on Instagram just to make sure.
Yeah, I turned it all the way off.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, there we go. I see you on. What's going on, everyone? What's up, Salo? I'm not a pro at this like you are, man, but I'm trying. All right. So we should be. There we go. Cool. Still hear an echo.
Yeah, I just turned it off again.
Okay, cool. Okay, looks good. All right. D said checking in. Hi, D. Yes, thank you for joining. Sorry we started a little bit late. That was my fault. We're just trying to get everything set up. But yeah, so just want to introduce. My name is Eric Velasquez, and I've been doing a bunch of candidates interviews. And today we have Mr. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Norris Tyrone Darden III. You can call me Tyrone, though.
All right. And you are running for what office?
City Council District 2.
Awesome. Okay. Man, there are so many people in this race. So how did you feel about that going in?
Well, I feel like this. Anytime there's a lot of interest in the community being serving, I think that's a good thing. Pretty much everyone in the race, I either have a great relationship with, I know personally, I'm related to a couple of the people, and even beyond that, if it's an indirect relationship, there's something positive there. So I see it as a great thing. District 2 is a great community, and for so many people to have interest in leading District 2, it's positive for me.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it's been overdue. I don't think people have been showing what District 2 can be, and definitely it's good to see the type of engagement, and hopefully we can get some good things happening for D2. So with that, what would be the first thing you would do once you get into office?
So for me, it's all about a plan, not a platform. So the first thing I would do is rescue the community out of this pandemic. We have a lot going on with COVID-19, from the deaths of people in our community. The African-American and the Latino population are overrepresented in the positives as well as the deaths. And so first and foremost, getting people access to the vaccines, that's going to be the priority. But beyond that, the CARES Act has a lot of resources that our community isn't being plugged into. So my first priority in my first 100 days will be to rescue our community out of this pandemic and get us back to the point to where we can recover from it.
Definitely. Can you check your Instagram real quick?
Yeah,
So
I see
let's.
it says done.
Can
I don't know
you?
why it said done.
Yeah, can you jump back on real quick, and then just want to make sure.
So
You
I'm
know.
on, and it has my face like blurred out.
Okay. Yeah. No worries. Let me see. Try to. Okay, I'll put you back in here.
Got it.
Cool. There we go. Okay. So yeah, I mean that is such a big problem, and you know, I think somebody pointed out that yeah, we have the vaccine and the testing at the AT&T Center on the on the east side, but
Mhm.
it's not for the east side. You know what I mean? So what do you feel about that issue?
So it really, it's not about what you do; it's about how you do it. I know right now the ministers are working with our state representative Barbara Griffin Hawkins in District 120 to kind of create some more access points. I spoke with Pastor Jones last night. He's over the Baptist Minister Union. He's the president right now, and he said the initial push was to get 500 people registered for the vaccine over at St. Stephen's, and they accomplished their goal, and now they're moving towards another 500. And so I think in addition to the traditional ways we get information out, that we do things in our community on the city level, we also need to engage our local leaders, whether it's in the faith-based community, the nonprofit community, and give them an opportunity to access those resources, because we know, especially in District 2, there's a lot of distrust with the government. There's a lot of distrust just in general, as a whole, with our culture. And so we like to deal with people that we know, that we have a relationship with. And 9 times out of 10, again, that's that faith-based community, that's that nonprofit community, and we need to allow those leaders to step up and reach our goals in our community.
Now, and thank you for that. With that, I mean, how do you feel that you can bridge the gap between community and government? And obviously, so are you talking about like a conjoinment of government and faith based, or just you're just talking about empowering the faith based communities to help the public itself?
Well, and that's a great question. So in District 2, uh, District 2 is similar to other districts, but District 2 has its own, again, culture, its own way of doing things. We have our own processes. For our community, again, the faith-based community and the nonprofit community are the movers and shakers. And so whether it's the city, whether it's the county, or even the private industry, if they need things to get done, it makes sense for them to engage those internal leaders in the faith-based community and the nonprofit community. So what I'm saying is, whether it's getting vaccines out, getting information out, getting resources out, if you want to engage those citizens in the community, you have to make sure you're dealing with people who can reach those people. Those
Yeah.
are preachers. Those are executive directors. Those are caseworkers and our case managers. Those are the people on the ground getting things done every day, with or without a pandemic. Because for our community, we're dealing with stuff every day. You might as well call it a pandemic, on a daily basis.
Right. And that's a good point, that because this is something I've said before is the government usually tends to be, well, let's do it this way and not consult the people who are on the ground and doing the day to day. But the fact that it's, yeah, you should consult with those people. And but how do you feel that you would be able to work in the government position and be able to bridge that gap between government and community itself?
Well, and again, I think what you're probing for is what the community needs to hear, what the people are listening need to hear. For me, it's all about effective communication. And I'm one voice, right? So
Mhm.
regardless of whether I'm an elected official, I'm appointed on the board, I'm just in the community doing what I can to help people. I'm only one person. So we have to figure out how to get on that sounding board. And once we get on that sounding board, how can we make that echo? How can we make that information get out? So number one, like I continue to say, uh, bridging that gap means connecting with the movers and the shakers in the community. That's going to be the people who have access to people, the people
Right.
who know how to mobilize people. So again, that's our faith-based community and that's our nonprofit community. Beyond that, though, we have to capitalize and maximize on all streams of communication. We know whether it be our millennials, the people, my age or
Mhm.
a little bit older, we do know how to access technology. But then we also have our older generation who may or may not be able to or want to. So you still have to put that touch on it, that door to door, those phone calls. We have to exhaust every means of communication to connect people to all the information, to all the resources, because we know knowledge is power. It
Mhm.
makes no sense for $1 million to come to the community and nobody knows about it. It's just going to be wasted. And so
Right.
we have to be able to communicate. And that goes back to relationships. I know a lot of the candidates have relationships. That's a positive thing. How do you leverage those relationships though? For me, I get calls every day. I'm an educator. I've been educated for 18 years. And so I deal with families every day. And I don't get calls about, can someone help my child graduate or get this GED? I get those calls, but I also get calls, can we get help with rental assistance? Can we get help paying our light bill? Can we get help finding a shelter? And so leveraging those relationships, leveraging those resources, I think are key to moving our community in the right place. When you can do it from a governmental standpoint, that exponents your reach, that exponents
Mhm.
your resources. And so, whatever I'm doing or any of the other candidates are doing, once you get into that position of counsel, the expectation is you're doing that times 100, times a
Mhm.
thousand, because now your reach is broader. Your signal can reach out further.
So with that, do you think that there is a lack of production from the government currently that we're not doing that? You know what I mean? We're not amplifying that help across the community.
I don't think anybody's to blame for anything. I believe it's up to everybody to get things done. For me, um, I depend on others in my network to move the ball down the field. It's a team effort.
Mhm.
So to your question, is the government, and I'm paraphrasing, is the government missing the mark in engaging the citizens of District 2? I think they are. I don't think it's intentional. What I do think is more people need to be involved in decision making. I think that we need to identify more leaders in our community. And I think that we need to ensure that we're not making decisions. When I say we, the person with the microphone, the person on the pedestal is not making decisions for for community members, but
Mhm.
we're making decisions on behalf of the community members.
Right, exactly, and because they're the ones who had the pulse on it, and having that establishing that relationship would be paramount
Mhm.
to forwarding that district. So yeah, definitely. Now, with what you were saying with rental assistance, um, with the city moving the funds from the EHAP, the Emergency Housing
Assistance program.
funds, yeah, and moving
Mhm.
over to affordable housing, like, do you think that could have been handled differently, or do you think that should have been left alone?
So again, for me, I think it's a broader question. So when that decision was made, who was involved in that decision? Was that a city staff decision? Was that a council decision? Were the council members, you know, able to go out and, talk to constituents and say, hey, this is what the city's thinking about doing. This is how it would impact our community, positive, negative. What are you guys' thoughts? Because when you go back into that room, that B session, A session, when you go back on that dais, you want to be able to again not speak for, but advocate
Hmm.
and ensure that the voice that you're relaying is not your voice; it's the voice of the people. And so, to your question, my question would be, how was that decision made, and were the people involved in making that decision? Did the people know how this would either impact them in a positive manner or a negative manner? And were they able to say, okay, I'm comfortable? Were we able to say, are we comfortable moving forward with this? Or was it just a decision
Right.
made without our input? That's the
Yeah.
question I would ask.
Yeah, and that's it's difficult. Oh, actually, I think Instagram logged you out. Do you mind jumping back in real quick?
Yeah, you can probably have to send me another invite. I see my
Yeah, no
face
worries.
blurred
Oh,
again.
you are you in? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm on. I'm just blurry.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Todd and Todd Investments for letting me. I didn't look at it. Okay, so all right, here we go. So what are some of the issues that you feel have not been addressed in District Two?
Man, that's a broad question. It's a plethora of issues.
Yeah.
I think, you know what? I think a lot of things are addressed. Again, though, they're not addressed at the will of the people.
Hmm.
And so, like, for example, we've been talking about stray dogs and cats. I'm 41 years old. I've been living in District 2 for 41 years. We've been talking about stray dogs and cats for 41 years. I was block walking on Sunday in 4037, and there's no fence, there's nothing. So I'm walking up to a door, and two very huge dogs approached me. Now, of course, I'm from this community, so I understand. But at the end of the day, I'm 41 years old. Even though I'm not a spring chicken, I can move around. I didn't get bit. But what if, my mother, who's 58 years old, was walking down the street, or a senior citizen or a child? They may not have been able to get away from that. And so I say that to say this: there's a lot of things that have been addressed, but they haven't been addressed at the will of the people. And so for me, something as simple as being able to walk down the street without being attacked by a dog or animal, whatever the animals may be, without having to, dodge, potholes and different debris and things like that. Simple things like that is what the citizens District 2 are asking for. Infrastructure. They're asking for safety. They're asking for stray dogs and cats not to be in the community. And so there's a lot of things that need to be addressed. But again, I think they need to be prioritized by the people, not by policymakers. And that seems to be what the constant is in District 2. They give us what they think we need as opposed to what we say we want.
Yeah, I mean, and from what I hear from the other candidates is the leadership is not, they're doing it at whatever will and not for the people itself. I mean, you know, so I mean that that sounds about accurate of what you're saying. I mean, I I was hoping to get Miss Sullivan on here, so hopefully she'll get on and see if maybe there's a different story to that. I mean, but definitely, I mean, we definitely need some type of communication, and that does seem to be lacking there. Uh, Now, as far as what do you think you can improve, and these are kind of in the sense redundant because I know you've already kind of touched base on them, but what do you think you can improve on from the current elected official? Just maybe like one thing that you would like to improve on, that not negative not a negative
Mhm.
standpoint, but something that you think you can improve that has already been in place.
And you're going to get this from any elected official. Constituent services is the foundation of what goes on or what should be going on in whether it's city council, whether it's the mayor's office, whether it's the state house, a senator, in Congress. Constituent services is the number one thing that should be taking place, right? So for me, that's a priority because it doesn't matter what the goals are, what the priorities are. If you're not engaged with the community, if you're not engaged with the residents, then again, it's you making decisions for them as opposed to you advocating for what they've told you they want. So I think the number one thing that needs to be improved is constituent services. Ultimately, and this is what I've heard, uh, and I've experienced it too, but I'm gonna speak on what I've heard. Um, a lot of constituents have expressed that they haven't really gotten responses to phone calls and emails, and if they have, it's been literally weeks and months And with the responses, it's, that's not what we do, or, see the county, or see the state rep or whatever. So the concerns aren't getting resolved. Again, for me, I've put out a couple of calls, and didn't get any responses back. So I have experienced that. But the biggest thing is the lack of communication. They, residents call in, or residents, leave emails, leave voice messages, and not only are their needs not met, but it's non-responsive. So I think the number one improvement should be constituent services. Beyond that, though, we have to leverage our office against the other political entities. So when I hear a community member say, well, I called the District 2 office and they said that's a state issue, or that's a county issue, or that's a school board issue, guess what? That's a problem for me, because when we say we have relationships, that's what we run on, we're going to work with this person, that person, that means also working with the other elected officials. So if it's a school board issue in SAISD, go work with Alicia Perry. If it's a state issue in District 120, go work with State Rep Barbara Gervin Hawkins. If it's a county issue in Precinct 4, go work with Commissioner Calvert. Leverage those relationships and ensure that it's not being passed on, but you're working together. Because if it's a state issue, but it overlaps with your district in city council, it's still your issue. You may not have the authority to make that change, but you have a voice to advocate what you need to that other political entity. So for me, constituent services should improve, and then the relationships between the other the other elected officials. Again, I respect the school board a lot. I mean, being a product of SEISD and coming out of college and being employed with SEISD, I know there's a lot of positive things going on in SEISD, specifically in District 2 SEISD. So leveraging a relationship with Alicia Perry, who is the current trustee in that area, the elected board member in that area, is key for success. It's the same people. It's the same constituents. So why not leverage those relationships to make things happen? And they happen on different levels. Like I said, we might be talking about cats and dogs in District 2. In the school board, in the school district, they might be talking about a different issue that we can tag team on and help each other out. At the state level, they may be talking about, the highways or the lanes, on W.L. White or something like that. The county might be talking about something totally different. We can all leverage those relationships and work together. So infrastructure. So constituent services and leveraging those relationships between those political offices, I think, are key. And then the third thing would be mobilizing, I said this earlier, mobilizing our leaders in the faith-based community and in the nonprofit community, and creating those engines, those collaborations of success, so we can work together. They already have those captive audiences that are in need, that are doing positive things in the community. Why not leverage those relationships and move forward together? So those are, you probably didn't ask me that, but those are the three things that I feel like we should improve on in the District 2 office.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is what it's about. Is it's being able to give out what you want to say. I mean, so yeah, this is great. I mean, and the thing too is, like just collaborating and being able to work with other organizations and making these organizations and groups stronger together, rather than work in little entities. And we
call them silos.
Right.
You have the silos of excellence where we say, well, we're doing good. How about you? No, we all should be working together. So we all should be doing good.
And that's something that we were talking about in District 5, that there's a lot of different organizations, and how cool would it be for everybody to start working together? How would that change the landscape? And so, do you think that here coming up in the future that there's something that maybe you can encourage other organizations to start working together, or do you think that they already are, but maybe not at the best way they can be?
I think a lot of people don't know how to work together. We live in a society sometimes that we reward and award the dog eat dog mentality. sometimes people don't see it as a positive thing working together. I used to be, and I've always been a collaborator. I've always been a person who wants to network and work with each other. But I've also been the type of person who wanted to be the first. And so there can't be two firsts. There can only be one first. And so sometimes we work so hard for our goals that we forget there's other people working next to us, on the side of us, working behind us, and even in front of us, that they can empower us, we can empower them. Iron sharpens iron. And that mentality sometimes inadvertently messes us up. And so to your question, I don't think we know how to work with each other. I think we have to see, going back to elected officials in our community, we hold our elected officials to high regard. Again, that school board, that state rep, that county commissioner, our college district board, District 2, over in Alamo colleges, we hold those with high regard. If the community saw those elected officials working together, then guess what? Some of our executive directors for these nonprofits will say, you know what? They doing it. Why can't we do it? And they may start working together. And some people may not admit this, but some of our churches have kind of started operating in those silos of excellence, saying, my congregation, my the people that I work with, they're good. My youth department, we're good. But when you see, okay, these elected officials are working with each other and these nonprofits are working with each other, okay, come on, guys. And I see that those positive things happening in CCSA and BMU. But again, there's some outliers that may say, I don't see the benefit in working with each other because no one else is working with each other. So we have to be models. We have to be models of that excellence. As a special education teacher by trade, the value of modeling the appropriate behaviors, the appropriate things to do, the value is just, there's no price put on it. It's priceless. And I think we got to start modeling that behavior from the top all the way to the bottom, and our kids, our children, they'll see it as well.
Definitely. That's really good. Let's see here. We have Arthur, bridging that gap, we'll have to get back to the elected official being an ear and a voice for the community. What seems to happen now on all levels is that the voice is speaking for the people of the community without listening to those same people.
Seems like Arthur needs to be running. He got a lot of good stuff to say.
Right? And that's the thing too is, nobody should ever feel discouraged to run for office, regardless of whatever your background is. And something that we should definitely start looking and running for a purpose and for the people instead of a party or an agenda. And that's something that I know with me in my campaigns before. It's like that's what I run. I've told people, don't run on a party. Don't run to further a party or solely for a party. Run for the people itself, and that should always take precedence. And with that, something that I've asked all the candidates, and something I know that's not being talked about, is would you be willing to look at ranked choice voting? And for anybody watching, ranked choice voting is basically, let's say you have 4 candidates, it would still have to equal the 50% amount to
50 plus
win
1.
50 plus 1. But you would have 4 candidates, and you would basically rank them in order between 1, 2, 3, or 4, let's just say. And then if that first person, the one that the highest amount of votes does not reach that 50, then the last person who has the least amount of votes, those votes get removed and placed into the other categories for the other 3 people, and then so on and so forth until there is a 50% majority. It's not implemented at all in Texas, but there are a couple of states that have started doing that this past year. It would bring a big change to how our elections are done, especially in partisan voting, which is voting when there are political parties involved, because then people would feel like their vote would matter, because they wouldn't feel like they would have to place a vote on somebody that they feel might not have a chance, so to say, because there's big names in the politics. So is that something that, and also it would also end gerrymandering. It would help end gerrymandering in the state level, and also, well, even in the city level. But also, it would help other candidates work together, because then they can appeal to the candidates, or to the constituents that are voting for the other candidates, to kind of get their number two spot, if that makes any sense. So, is that something that you'd be willing to look at?
Look, I'm like 100% happy you asked me that question, Eric. I have a friend, his name is Jimmy Loud, out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And up there, they actually do ranked choice voting. And we've been talking about this for 3 or 4 years, because he asked me, hey, is this something y'all do in Texas? And I told him no. But so he, kind of that same breakdown that you gave me. But again, he lives in an area where they do it. So he broke it down to me. And I said, man, that is phenomenal. And let me tell you why. And let me say this. I'm a proponent of it. I've actually sent information over to the state rep's office, District 120, to look at legislation for this session. There are actually other state senators and state representatives that are also looking into ranked choice voting. But for me, I'm a proponent, and I'm going to tell you why. Several years ago, and for the District 2 seat kind of kicked this off. And so there was a lot of transition. Our city council person ended up being the mayor, because the mayor ended up going to Washington and being the HUD secretary, right? So that created a vacancy, right? So there was a special election. So in this special election, there may have been 6 people. I was one of the candidates, actually, in the election. In that election, there was a runoff. So we went maybe, I don't know, maybe 90 days, right? We had an appointed person, but we went about 90 days without an elected person in the office. But that person was being elected in a special election for the remainder of that person's term, right? And so another election came about 6 months later in May, and then there was another runoff. And so within a matter of maybe 9 months, there was 4 or 5 elections, right, for the same position. Then we backdoored and we went for District 120. So there was a special election for that. There was a runoff for that, and then there was a general election where we had, Democrat, Republican. There was a runoff for that, and then there was a general election. So we had another 5 or 6 elections. For me, I guess you can't put everything on at one time. I guess my ask would be allow municipalities the opportunity to use ranked choice voting in a special election. And so let's see how it goes. Let's get some data on it in Texas. And if it works for us, and then we can implement that into something that we can do more consistently. But I'm a proponent on it. I think it'll save us a lot of money. I think it'll save us a lot of time. It'll keep representation consistent, and it'll move forward, because a lot of voter fatigue is out there, and we were suffering from a lot of voter fatigue in District 2 and District 120. And like I said earlier, it's the same people for the most part. And so, for a lack of a better word, or better words, it sucked.
Yeah. And for everybody watching, ranked choice voting would end this duality of bipartisanship, of fighting between parties, and also open the door for independent and third party voters, candidates as well. But also the fact that it's probably gone up, which I think I heard it went up more than this, but $8 million to hold an election in Bexar County in general. You think about runoff elections, this goes on and it costs another $8 million to hold runoff elections. With ranked choice voting, there would not be a need for any runoff elections, because automatically those votes get tallied up. And then we would have an actual winner. There would not be a need to have a runoff election. So that would save the city millions and millions of dollars. And like you were saying, it would just help, and especially helping the relationship and the voters be able to vote in confidence for their people. That would definitely change the landscape of our election cycle. Isaiah said, I'm enjoying this conversation. Thank you. Often we see so many people who are passionate. Oh, I'm going to read, who are passionate about running for communities, but do not know how to advocate for resources and have no substantive knowledge in municipal operations like the budgeting process for cities. So, how do you feel about budgeting? What are some things that you would like to see changed, or what things you would implement to reduce spending and things like that?
So I like what they did with the equity piece, with the last bond, and I know they're implementing that, or doing their best to implement that with the budget. You think about it. The city of San Antonio has 10 districts, and let's say we have $2 billion, then everybody gets an equal share. But we know equality and equity aren't the same things. So the 100 million that you give District 2 is not the same 100 million that you give District 10. That 100 million for District 2, if we used it all in the places of need, will probably for the most part go into infrastructure. Where in District 10, they don't have to use it in infrastructure or the same ways we use it in infrastructure. So it's about equity. I think equity should be the conversation. But beyond that, I don't believe we should be having budget talks fiscally. I think budget talks should be, a triennial thing. And when I say triennial and biennial and triennial, I'm going to use it. I'm going to operationalize it my way. I think we should be looking at budgets 3 years ahead of time. And so we shouldn't be looking at the budget this year or this July for next fiscal year. We should be looking at the budgets for the next 3 to 5 years and looking at what we need in our communities for the next 3 to 5 years. And that's just not the basic things like infrastructure. I mean, I can remember growing up when, the nonprofits had access to the CSBG and the CDBG. A lot of those funds that were going out into the community for those entities that needed the most and that served the community the most, and that was those natural partnerships with the government, with the city. The city's absorbing a lot of those resources. Mm-hmm. And so I would like, number one, to go to, let's forecast. Let's stop looking at it for 3 months, for 12 months, and let's look at it for 12 months, for 36 months. Let's look at what we need over time, and let's not let that just be a city staff deal. Let that be a council deal as well. And I know some council members are up on it, and some aren't, but that should be a standard for us. So I think that should be what it is. But also I think we should get back to those allocations that in the past traditionally have went to the community. They go back to the community, and a lot of communities start being a partner in delivering some of these resources.
Yeah, definitely. Now, and when you talk about the allocation of funds, and I know this has been a recent, obviously big issue with SAPD and the allocation of funds, and so where do you stand on that issue where SAPD did get an increase in budget, and and then cuts to community programs? Now, obviously, yes, we need to figure out if those community programs are working in their best ability. We can't just give money to everything, but we also need to hold accountability on SAPD and things like that. But what is your stance with everything that happened with that budget?
Well, this is my thought on it, period. I believe transparency is key on both Support's part. And so on Support's part, as they are the union that, obviously lobbies and represents San Antonio police, women and men, but also the city. We got to be transparent. We hear a lot of things in sound bites, and everybody's wrong. And so for me, when is somebody's going to come out and say, hey, this is what's going on both sides? When is the city manager going to say, hey, it's not all bad with Support, it's not all bad with the budget for SAPD, but these are the things that we can work on together? And when the Support step up, and they got new leadership, so we'll see how that goes. But when they step up and say, okay, these are our deficits, and this is what we know we need to work on, but this is the stuff that benefits our workforce, the people that protect and serve every day, that ensure that we have a safe and vibrant community. Let's work to protect this, but we're willing to meet in the middle to work on these things. I want to see the transparency. I want to see more than sound bites. So for me as an elected official, I think if, again, city staff and the city manager aren't willing to be transparent for both sides, the pros and the cons, the plus and the deltas, and the support isn't ready to be transparent for both sides, the pluses and the deltas, I think it's up to our elected leaders to be the voice for that. And so I, to that point, I got I recently did a survey, a questionnaire for one of the organizations, and the two questions. One question was, do you support defund the police? And the second question was, do you would you seek out the police departments, would you seek out SAPOA's endorsement? For me, I think it's a major concern if you're not seeking that endorsement. Let me tell you why. If you can't sit at the table with the leadership of SAPOA and say, this is what District 2 needs, this is what District 2 wants, this is not what we're going to stand for, and allow them to say, well, you're not the candidate that we want to get behind, then guess what? You're probably not doing the right thing, because in politics, there's no permanent enemies and there's no permanent friends. It's only people who are willing to move the needle for your community. So for me, I want to be at the table with support to be able to speak truth to them and say, that's not right. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. And if they need to kick me out, they can kick me out. But ultimately, if I'm never there, all I'm going to get is sound bites. All I'm going to get is what I'm being fed, because I'm not a part of the conversation. And you didn't ask this, but I'm gonna respond to this. Defunding the police. Everyone that I talk to that's behind the defund the police movement have told me the same thing. Oh no, we're not saying defund the police. We're saying we need to reallocate funds, that police shouldn't be doing the work of social workers. And so it's confusing to me, because again, we're talking in sound bites. Because when I hear defund the police, it's like if somebody says defund Tyrone, that means take Tyrone's wallet, take Tyrone's bank card. Tyrone doesn't have any money. So but that's not what they're saying. And so I think we have to be a little bit more clear on what we want, so we can get more people behind it. And for those who are on the fence can say, hey, I'm not sure what you mean, but if you explain it to me, I can support you. I'm all for reallocating funds, reappropriating funds, putting money in the places where they need to be to help our community. And if that means shrinking the budget for law enforcement, then guess what? That's what we need to do. But it can't just be sound bites. We have to stop talking in sound bites, because the constituents are trusting us. They're trusting us with this information. And if all they hear is these sound bites, they're going to assume that's what it is. And that's not what it is. And so I believe we need to have a seat at every table. And if we get kicked out, we get kicked out. But I think we need to be intentional on having a seat at the table. And beyond that, we need to be very, very clear on what we want and how we're going to move the needle for our community.
Yeah, definitely. And that should always be in any political candidate, to be able to willing to listen, be able to say, look, I'm going to give anybody a chance. I don't care who it is, even if it's my direct opponent, be willing to listen and work together. That's something that I did on my campaign too. I reached out to my direct opponent. I said, hey, I just want to let you know I'm here, But the thing is that because that's what bothers me, is when you see these slanders going against different candidates, it's like, well, if you can't work together now, what makes you think you could work together once you're in office? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest things that I think people took from that. And I think even Barack Obama said that once you said defund the police, you lost a lot of people, and that's a big issue, especially if you're trying to motivate people to do something. You're going to lose a lot of people if you do something like that, to where you're saying, defund the police, and you're not actually, you have to explain that situation.
And it's okay. If you want to defund the police, that is okay. But if that's not what you're saying, then don't say that.
Right.
Everybody has a right to say and do what they want.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if I'm hungry and I want a hamburger, I'm not going to say I'm thirsty. I'm going to say I'm hungry and I want a hamburger, because if I'm hungry and I want a hamburger and you bring me soup, I'm going to be mad at you. Yeah,
Right.
I'm gonna be bothered by that.
Great point. Isaiah says nationally there has been a decrease in the affordable housing supply, which has resulted in an affordable housing crisis. In many parts of District 2, home prices have tripled. Of course, we want investment in our community, but what will you do to prevent displacement and gentrification? To help small business owners? How will you create pathways for citizens to make it to the middle class?
All right, leave that up there. Don't move that, because
Yeah, yeah.
that's heavy. So I
Right.
want to respond to all of it.
Yes.
And so the first thing, the affordable housing crisis. So number one, again, operationalize. We have to operationalize these words and form a common language. When we talk about affordable housing, I don't know if we're all talking about the same thing. For me, as an administrator in the school, a degree person, affordable for me is different from some of the parents that I serve. So we have to be clear on what's affordable, what affordable means. Now I know from the feds, they have a definition of what affordable housing is, and when we get these, this funding, we have to follow those protocols, those guidelines. But in San Antonio, we can define what affordable housing is. We know, and I was out block walking again in 4037 and knocked on a young lady's door, and she said, I said, man, what are your concerns? She said, a lot of people think crime is my concern, but crime is or is the concern. It's not. And she pointed across the street. She said, you see that? I said, yes, ma'am. And it was a 2-story house, but the house was probably I can't explain it. It was the size of a doorway, right? It was a thin house, but it was tall, right?
Oh, like
And
a
she said,
shotgun house?
it's like a shot. Well, again, we got to operationalize these words. We know a shotgun house ain't worth $300,000, but she said, look at that house. She said, the people who built that house before they started construction came to me and offered me $35,000 for my home. She said, what am I going to do with $35,000? She said, furthermore, they built that house across the street because somebody took the $35,000. She said they built the house across the street, and now it's about $300,000. She said, who can afford that in this community? She said they're pricing us out of our homes. So for me, we have to figure out what affordable is. We know there's a need for infill housing. We know there's a need for family housing in regards to the wife, the husband, the 3 kids, and the dog. Most of the homes, at least in the District 2 East Side piece, you're going to see 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, right? That's really difficult in these days and times. We not only need affordable housing, infill housing, but we need comparable housing. That shouldn't cost $300,000 and $400,000. So how do we conquer that? How do we address that? Again, it goes back to relationships. Who needs housing? School districts need housing. Why they need housing? Because the tax base is their tax base. That tax base funds school district budgets in addition to the state money. So why wouldn't I partner with the school district as the city council person and say, how can we help SAISD, or how can we help NEISD, or how can we help ECISD get more students and more families? Oh, I know. We can partner with some builders that are willing to come in and not gentrify, not price us out, but put some homes in here that our families can afford. And so we're moving from apartments to yards, from the concrete to the dirt. And so it's really about collaboration. The same thing with the state, and the same thing with the county. There's programs out there. There's money. There's funding out there, but we're not talking to each other to address these issues. So that's that piece. There's a lot of other things I can say about affordable housing, but I think collaborating with school districts, collaborating with the county and the state, and then also partnering with the allies. And we talk about developers all the time. Don't take developer money. No, We need housing. Who's going to put the housing in the community if we're not partnering with them? And it goes back to having a seat at the table. So if we partner with the allies, those who have our best interests in mind, and we don't just put, like you said, the shotgun houses, the row houses, or the gentrified houses. If we put things that our community can really afford, that is priced in our range, we'll get that done. So that's on that. Hopefully I answered it. If not, we have more time in the
if
campaign.
not, Isaiah, just if you want to come on, actually, if you want to jump in, you can as well in the live stream. You can do that. I could send you the link, Isaiah, and you can kind of follow up to that if there was something else that you wanted to ask, or anybody else as well. Cindy on Instagram said, can you hear him, or can you not hear him on Instagram?
Oh, you know what? It was paused.
Oh, okay.
It was paused because I got 10% left, but it's okay. We'll be all right.
Okay. Now, what was I going to say? So with the developers, one thing I was saying is, well, why not? If you are going to have, you still can't hear him?
Well, I'm not talking, so.
Oh, can you hear me, or can you hear us now, Cindy?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I can hear myself fine.
Okay. Now with the developer itself, I was saying, well, if you are going to have developers, stop giving them tax breaks. But why not just say, look, if you are going to develop, you need to provide, internet access to these people in the community. You know what I mean? Because that's one, or something else, something that'll directly benefit the community itself, because these tax breaks do not benefit the community.
So I got something for that.
Okay.
Because a lot of times we have a lot of bright ideas, but we don't address things as specific as that.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, we have to, in my mind, we have to attract businesses to our community, again, to improve our tax base for jobs, opportunity, things like that. And with that, people are going to move to the areas where they get the best situation, the best bang for their buck. So we have to leverage those tax breaks, right? But what we also need to do is hold people accountable. What I think what needs to be done, and what I would push for, is when we bring in these businesses, whether it's in-state, out-of-state, whatever, part of the agreement is, let's say the tax breaks are for 5 years or 10 years. During that time, they have to fund an equity director, an equity compliance director within that company. So just off top, let's say that equity compliance director is $80K off salary. Boom, you got that. All right, that's taken care of. But let's say we said you have to hire 25% of your hires over the next 10 years need to be from the district, right? Let's say that's a stipulation. Well, I know, and I'm gonna call him a writer, I know leaders that have put those kind of writers and stipulated those type of things in those agreements with those businesses. But guess what? They haven't been enforced because there's no accountability, right? But if you put that equity compliance director into that company over the lifetime, over whatever you're saying it is, whatever those breaks are, guess what? Every year, the equity director needs to bring a report, an annual report to the community on how they're meeting their goals. And if they're not meeting their goals, after, let's say, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, they lose those tax breaks. Mm-hmm. We have to hold them accountable. So obviously, quarterly, they're reporting to council, they're reporting to the mayor, they're reporting to city staff. But annually, we need to put out a report card. And FCC, Brother Calvert, they've done a great job with their report cards over the last couple of years. But we need something internally for the city. Mm-hmm. We can't allow the community to keep doing the city's work. And again, I applaud all of those community members that have been out there doing these things because they are needed. But ultimately, the city needs to hold these companies accountable for these broken promises. And the community is going to continue holding the city accountable for for their broken promises. I'm not a part of it yet, but again, if I'm blessed to be in that position, hold me accountable as well.
Definitely. And with the property taxes increasing, it's so crazy that, you know, all these property taxes are so much, you know, but what are some of your things that you would like to see done with the property taxes?
So again, it's about information. Knowledge is power. What I've learned over the years is that there's a lot of loopholes. Whether you're senior, whether you live in a certain community, whether you're grandfathered in for whatever situation, there's a lot of, and I'm calling them loopholes. Maybe that's not the best way to put it, but there's a lot of loopholes for people to benefit from the tax situation, even when, for example, gentrification is going on around them, or let's say someone passes away and leaves an estate to them or leaves some property to them. It's about information. One thing I can say positive about one of our former city council persons, and they wasn't even elected yet, Cruz Shaw. Before he was even thinking about running as a lawyer, you know, using his trade, he went out and educated the community on wills and estates and planning and things like that, and even senior citizens. He did their estate plannings and their wills for free. And so even dealing with those type of situations, a lot of people don't know. They don't know. A lot of people don't know about probate and what happens when all these different things take place. So going back to your tax question, a lot of the tax issues, they come about because people don't know. Even with the small businesses, they don't know. And I know we have entities like Sage. We have the Alamo City Black Chamber of Commerce, which I'm on the board of. We have all these different resources, but we need to start connecting people to these resources so they will know. If you know, like they say on G.I. Joe, knowing's half the battle. The next part, now you know. The next part is the effort. And I know a lot of these people talk about people being lazy or this or that. They're not. They just don't know. Once they're in the know, if you knew better, you'll do better. I know they'll do better.
Definitely. And everybody watching, protest your property taxes every single year. Deny the first offer that they give you. Well, actually, you protest it. They'll send you an offer, deny it, then go in for your formal interview, and then just work with them there.
And to your point, a lot of people may not even know what you're referring to, right?
Right.
And so that's that information, that's that knowledge, and we got to pass that knowledge on.
Definitely. And you can go to Bexar County Appraisal District. The website is on there. You get these every year in the mail, and basically it'll tell you how much your home is basically worth according to Bexar County. And you would just go in and you can protest them. You can protest them online. If you have any questions, please reach out to me, because I actually did a class on how to do your protests and your taxes and what you would expect from it. But also just make sure that, because they do not know what is wrong with their home. They just see it from an outside perspective from Google Maps. They just look at, okay, well, and then comparing it to from other houses that are selling near you. So definitely something that you want to do every single year. So that way you're not priced out of your home. It's that way you're because they will keep going up every single year. And I don't care if it lowers or if it only raises $1,000, you still want to always protest your taxes every single year. And so how do you feel? Do you think there should be campaign contribution limits? I know it's kind of a different direction, but do you think that maybe that's something that we should start looking into, doing a cap on campaign contributions?
So when you say a cap, you're speaking on individual or overall?
I'm saying overall, in general.
Well, no, I mean, I think that on a municipal level, they do a good job. For a city council candidate, you can't get more than $500 from an individual over that cycle, right? And for the mayoral candidates, they can't get over 1,000 over that cycle. But I mean, if I know 1,000 people that can give me $500, I'll take the 500,000 to run my race. At the end of the day, I think that goes back to networking. What I want to do is give kudos to Jalen. There's been a lot of hoopla around his financial report. He was able to get 420 plus donations within that cycle, that first cycle, reporting cycle, to reach about $17,600, and that's a positive thing. We look back to President Barack Obama and his campaigns, and he was $2, $10, $5, whatever it was. And so I commend Jalen and the other candidates who would be embarking on this campaign finance journey that we have, on whatever they feel like the best strategy is. But if there were limits, maybe that would hurt someone like Jalen that has a broad national and maybe even global reach on getting those small donations to make a big impact. So I don't think there should be limits on the overall. I do think I think I'm comfortable with $500 per person, per candidate. I'm sorry, per donor for each candidate. I'm comfortable with that.
Now, I mean, somebody brought up that there are PACs and things like that. So I mean, there's definitely sometimes some issues, especially when the recent issue with almost all the city council members and some elected officials had received money from this gentleman that was sued, because he was doing he was giving money even though he had contracts with the city, and he was trying to get contracts with the city. So I think that's the reason why we ask about that, is because there's definitely obviously dirty money in politics, and that is a big issue.
Let me say this, E, if I can call you E.
Yeah.
Let me say this. And I this is no disrespect to anyone, but if $500, if $3,000 can buy a person's vote, then they probably shouldn't be in that position in the first place. I mean, at the municipal level that we're raising funds, I mean, if we're making promises based on, again, $500, or if somebody's bundling, they got a family of 6 people at their house and they all can get $500, $3,000. If your vote can be sold for $3,000, and again, I want to be clear, there shouldn't be a price for a vote, because again, you're working on the behalf of the community. But if you have a price tag, any price tag, but if $500 is your price tag, you shouldn't be running. And so for me, I don't know about this dark money. I don't know about this person that was giving money to candidates or elected officials. But if that person thought $1,500, $25,000, whatever the amount is, was enough, then they don't think highly of the character of our leadership, because there's no way you should be able to be bought if you're serving for the community. That's my take on
it. And the reason why I ask this is because obviously there are a lot of distrust with politicians, and there's a lot of this going on, and even if you look at the national level, and a lot of people might not know this, but candidates or actually people that are running for re-election or for specific seats, committees in DC, they have to raise millions and millions of dollars to be on these committees. Who is going to give that to them? These lobbyists or people that are giving these corporate money. So that is a reason why, because it all trickles down, and it goes down and it goes down, and it ends up being in our level as well, because there's going to be people on the local level that want to do that. So
and I agree. I agree, and I understand. We're not insulated. When I say we, on the local level, right. Whether city council or whatever situation, school board, the college board, we're not insulated from corruption. So I agree to that point. It goes back to character, though. Yeah. I wouldn't do anything for money that I wouldn't do for free, and I seem to think that I'm a pretty high character person. So there's really not too many things that you can say, I'll pay you if you do this, that I'll say, okay. I do a lot of things for free that I should get paid for.
Right.
So it all goes back to your character.
Yeah. And I totally agree with that. It's just, there is so much distrust, and people are like, no, they see this happening. I see it happening, and it's frustrating because it shouldn't be happening. You're right. It should not be happening, but we have so many people that do it. And they do it sometimes unknowingly too. So, I mean, exactly. I'm just saying this, trying to bring the conversation of changing how our campaigns are done, changing the mindset of, oh, well, campaigns cost so much. Why do they cost so much? They shouldn't cost so much. It should be about the people people running should already have a foothold, their finger on the pulse of the
Mhm.
community, and those people should be able to feel entrusted by the candidates running. So that's what I'm saying is
And I agree, but it's difficult, man. When
it
I
is.
when I
I know.
ran the
I know.
when I ran the first time, this is real. When I ran the first time, I was at a debate, and it was at Davis Middle School. I'll never forget it. It was a, let's not say a debate. It was a forum. And so when I walked in, I worked at Davis. And so I'm from the community. I went to King. I went to Davis for a semester. And so I worked at Davis probably 4 or 5 years before that, for 4 years. And so I walked in thinking, okay, I'm on home turf. I'm good. I'm feeling comfortable. And there was a teacher who not only, well, she wasn't a teacher, she was an aide, but not only was she one of the people I worked with, and we had a great relationship when I worked there, but growing up, she was one of the people in the community that worked in the school. So she knew me, she knew my mother, she knew my siblings, she knew my grandparents. And I went in and I went to, of course, it's pre-COVID. This is 2013. I went to give her a hug. Not gonna call her name because I want to call her out. But I went to give her a hug, and she kind of like backed away and say, "Hey, you're running for city council, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." How you doing, Miss So and So? And she said, "Hey, I've been hearing a lot about you. Won't you tell me about yourself?" And I looked at her, and I kind of looked at her. I said, "Miss So and So, it's me. It's Tyrone." And then I said it's Norris because that's how she knew me as a kid. And then she kind of looked at me, and I said, "It's Tyrone." And that's kind of how she knew me as a student. And then I said, "It's Coach Darden." And then that's how she knew me as a staff member. And she just looked at me and walked away. And she said, I'll just get information when you speak up there." And I was just taken aback because at this time I was 33 years old, maybe. This woman had probably known me for 28 years, but she acted as if she didn't know me. So I get it. Campaigns shouldn't cost a lot, but you would be amazed how different your community name ID or your small business name ID or just whatever, your popular name ID, being an athlete or whatever, it means nothing when it comes to politics, because I had to reinvent myself as a politician for people even to take me seriously. So I had to put up signs. I had to do, social media commercials. I had to do all these different things for people who've known me for my entire life to say, "Oh, that's Tyrone." It was crazy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's I've always taken the approach of I don't want to spend too much on money and because, I guess it's a principle type of thing, but yeah, I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult. Everyone, if you do decide to run, it is difficult, but that's, I'm just like, man, I wish we would change that narrative of changing the approach of how we do campaigns, because it would be so much different, and I that's my vision. But I always ask, because a lot of people are for campaign contribution limits because they do feel like there is a too much that comes into politics and campaigning and things like that, and there shouldn't be a need for it and all that stuff. But thank you for answering that question.
Yes, no problem. No, I will answer any question you ask or anybody else asks.
Now,
I think my phone just died, so we done with the.
uh-oh.
Yeah, my phone. So we done with the
Instagram.
Instagram. Yeah.
All right. Sorry, guys. Okay. Ed, what does community mean to you?
So that's a great question. For me, and I'm I'm not, I have no shame in saying I'm a Christian. So I'm a Christian. So I'll kind of relate this to what the church means to me. So the community and the church to me are kind of similar. So for the church, people think about traditionally the four walls of the church, right? But the church isn't the four walls. The church are the people inside of the four walls. So for me, the community is not the boundaries of District 2. It's not, coming up through downtown, coming up through St. Paul Square, or entering off 410, coming up WW White, or the back end off WW White off Rigsby through District 3. It's not that. The community is the people in District 2. And so for me, we're diverse. You think about it, again, I'm 41. So growing up, District 2 was the east side, but through growth and through annexation and through all these other different things, these different elements that have taken place, District 2 has grown. And I don't like to call it the northeast side. I like to call it the far east side because geography is important to me, but you know, District 2 is diverse. The concerns in Dignity aren't the same concerns in East Terrell Hills, and the same can be said in Sunrise and in Wheatley Heights, or Eastwood or Delcrest. You know, the concerns are different. They're diverse. You know, we're traditionally known, historically known as the black, you know, the black district, the black community, X, Y, and Z. But we're diverse. Again, you know, we have Hispanics, we have Latinos, you know, whatever the designation is. We have, you know, our Anglo in white citizens over here, and we even have our Korean base that's over here as well, and other nationalities and in other cultures. And so it's very diverse. So what is community? What is the District 2 community for me? It's a very diverse cultural body of people that have a lot of needs that need to be addressed. You know, District 2 is rural. It's not just urban. You know, you get into the core and you see a lot of urban things, but District 2 is rural as well. You go out there off 87 and, you know, start heading towards you know, St. Hedwig and in that way, you know, even, you know, with Lakeside and Blue Rock Springs and, you know, that Sulphur Springs area. You know, it's an urban area. You go out, you know, going past Sam Houston, you know, it's developing out there, but it's that rural area. I mean, I said urban, rural area. So we got to look at it both ways. You know, we're diverse in our community, and there's not just one thing that's going to address the many different concerns that we have. And we can't just look at it a negative way. There's not just one thing that addresses the positive things. You know, different. Everybody might not want McDonald's. We might want Chick-fil-A, or we might want what is that, In and Out. Everybody's different. You know, we might want some soul food. We might want some Chinese food. We're a very diverse community, and I think that needs to be addressed in leadership.
Definitely. And just for anybody on Instagram, sorry his phone died, but just go over to Facebook for the rest of the interview. We'll be done shortly, but if you do want to catch it, please head over to Facebook. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end this live stream on Instagram. But thank you guys. Yeah, and with that, what do you think some things are? Do you think there needs to be more small business restaurants on the east side, or do you think there's too much, you know, too many corporations in there? Or
so there's definitely not a lot of enough corporations. So well, to the original part of the question, do I think there needs to be more small business? I think there needs to be a good balance. So when it comes to what we need, you look at any successful community. They have a little bit of everything, right? They have you have your mom and pop barbershop, and you might have a sport clips and sport cups, whatever the name of that organization is. Again, you might have your McDonald's and your Burger King, but then you got your fatty burgers and you know, those entities. We throw our newspapers, and you might have the San Antonio Express News, and you might have the Herald, but then you also have the Reporter and the Observer, and then even, you know, with Miss Nika, who's also running, you have your other media outlets with the One Radio and Carl Booker, who's also running. You know, you have the, you know, Vista Products with the Black Book and things like that. And so we have to have a balance. And again, it goes back to District 2 being diverse. One thing doesn't satisfy us because we're not one people. We're, you know, and even in that one person, I'm a diverse person. Sometimes I like chicken. Sometimes I like chitlins. I mean, I like different things. So I need that diversity in my community. So I'm glad I have, well, Mrs. Kitchens kind of moved out, but I'm glad I have Mrs. Kitchens and Tony G's. But I'm also glad, you know, I have whatever these other big box places are.
Right.
Bill Miller's or whatever.
Definitely. Isaiah does have a comment here. Often we hear candidates' plans for the east side, but we never hear about the plans for the lower northeast of San Antonio. There has been a large migration of Black businesses and Black people to that side of town. What do you believe the future of the district is?
I believe the future of the district is inclusion. Well, I believe the future of the district under our leadership, that's you and me, and not talking to you, E. I'm talking to everybody else in District 2 that's listening. But under our leadership, it's going to be inclusion. What does inclusion mean? First, we got to start within. Again, District 2 has grown over my 41 years. It's not just the core East Side anymore. We look at Wilshire Woods. We look at the Kruger area. We look at, and a lot of people don't know this, District 2 stretches all the way back near the post office on Perrin Vital, up Eisenhower towards the Bear County area with that northeast crossing. Roosevelt High School sits in District 2. A lot of people don't even know these areas. The areas where where I'm at, the Knolls, those different areas need to be East Terrell Hills. Those areas needs to be addressed. So first, we have to talk about inclusion internally, and how do we get those areas involved? That starts with, number one, hearing what they allow them their voice to be heard. But beyond that, putting them on boards and commissions. Beyond that, ensuring that not only do we have a District 2 office in these areas, but the constituent services are of high quality. And so all those different things matter. But I agree. The vision needs to be broader. But for me and for us working together, what I see is inclusion. Beyond inclusion internally, what we do for each other, we got to look at District 3. We got to look at District 10. We got to look at District 1 and how we partner on things and leverage our resources. We got to look at the county and again, start working with the commissioner and see how those outlying areas like Camelot and some of those unincorporated areas, and even with Converse and what's my other place with the lights, Windcrest, how we leverage those municipal relationships. We got to start doing it. So, East Terrell Hills, on that northeast side, closer to 10, we got to work with 10. We got to work with Windcrest. We got to work with those areas. We got to work with Live Oak. They're all touching those areas to help incite catalytic change and positivity in those communities, because those are still District 2 as well.
Right, exactly. And thank you for that question. Dream says, are there something we can do to help our small businesses in District 2?
Yes, there's a lot of things we can do. Number one, again, as I stated earlier, I am a board member for the Alamo City Black Chamber of Commerce. We have to help strengthen it, because when businesses come to town, or when we have current businesses, everybody doesn't have their own infrastructure in place. They need places to go to get their support. We need to ensure that the machine that we have in place, which right now primarily is Alamo City Black Chamber of Commerce, as far as chambers of commerce for this community, we need to ensure that they're strong. That's number one. Number two, Sage has done a lot of great things. I think Sage is kind of, outside of, they had a little run where they were kind of developing business on a larger level. I know Tony G's benefited and a couple of other businesses benefited, but we got to start scaling up. And if that may or may not be the mission, maybe we need to either grow Sage or add some other components to support Sage. The other part of it,
just for people who might not know, can you just explain what Sage is?
San Antonio Growth for the East Side. It's a nonprofit. It was birthed out of the city, but for the most part, it's standalone now. They do storefront grants. They've done other grants, incubator grants, and things like that throughout their existence. But for the most part, they're there for support, technical support for certain situations. And again, those storefront grants to beautify the front of your buildings. And help the community kind of have that beautification effect. They're there for that. They range in different numbers in regards to how much you can apply for these grants. But I think it's a good thing. I think it's just one piece of it. We either have to grow it or put some other parts to it to make it more substantial. And then, so I said two things. It's always good to have three. So you have your chamber, you have Sage, but then the other part of it is connecting these small businesses to resources. In this crisis, we talk about the PPP, but before the PPP and after the PPP, there's going to be so many other opportunities. And it's not just with the city, but there's going to be so many opportunities, whether it's for the city or for other entities. And again, leveraging those relationships with the county, those relationships with the Alamo College Board, leveraging those relationships with SEISD, because they all have opportunities as well. But getting them in contact, in touch, connected with all those different entities, so they can be fruitful and multiply and grow and be good and be healthy, because we know healthy business in our community helps our community.
Definitely. Thank you for that question as well. But yeah, so is there any other topics that you would like to touch on that maybe I missed, or something that you want to just say to people watching, or just in general?
Now, well, it's going to be a long race, guys. What I would like to anybody who's listening live, or anybody who would listen to this later, view this later, be engaged. There's a lot of great candidates. I know or know of every last candidate, and they all bring something positive to the table. Don't vote for Tyrone because my name is Tyrone, and that sounds good because Erykah Badu got a song about it. Don't vote for me because don't vote for me for anything material. Vote for me because there's substance. Vote for me because I said something, I did something that you identified as a leadership quality, a leader skills that I've kind of showed you that, oh yeah, he could be the next city council person. And the same thing goes for anybody else. Don't vote for me because we cousins. Don't vote for me because I coached your son. Vote for me or anybody else because we have what it takes to move our district, not in the next 2 years, but over the next 8 years in the right direction. Be engaged. So in situations like this, I appreciate you. Make sure you guys are engaged. Look for the next one. And don't just be engaged because Tyrone is talking. Whoever the other next candidate is, I'm going to tune in. Y'all should tune in too, because knowledge is power. If there's a forum, it's COVID. So most of the stuff is going to be online anyway. Guess what? When you talk about spending, it doesn't have to be on TV anymore. It can be on the internet. For the most part, we all have some type of access from our phone, from our laptops, our Chromebooks. Stay tuned, guys. Visit these pages. They're not private anymore. Get on these pages and see what these candidates are doing, what they're saying, who they're networking with, what their priorities are, what their platforms are. Go to their websites. Be engaged. And if I knock on your door, open it and
Right.
talk to me, because you have a face-to-face, and it's hard for me to BS you and do that politically correct stuff when I'm in your face. And so just be engaged. The overarching point that I want to make is be engaged. Make this a very, very, very promising council run for all the people involved, and get some good information. Make a very, very, very good decision. Make a decision though. Go out to vote. If you're not registered to vote, get registered to vote. Figure something out. Call me. Call Tyrone. 210-378-3618. My number's been the same since 1999, and it will not change if I become Councilman Darden. So I'm going to always answer that phone. You can always call Tyrone, and I'm not even trying to be funny. That's just real. That's me. But be engaged, though. Be engaged.
Definitely. And, I think it speaks volume because, there's definitely been a couple of candidates that have just given their phone number, and it's, it just brings truth to the people saying that they want to be available to the people, but, definitely be engaged with everyone, and that's the whole reason why I started this series, just because I saw the lack of information, for all the candidates, and just having a real conversation and real talk to talk, because forums are great, but you only get 2 minutes for each question, and it's like you don't really get to see the substance and all that. So definitely we are going to be doing everyone, as many as whoever responds back, that wants to do it. If they don't, then they don't, but everybody's been pretty receptive.
And when you run out of people to interview and nobody else is responding, feel free. You can call Tyrone again.
Well, I might do a forum. Because, that'll be good too, to have this conversation, and we can have everybody on together at the same time. So, but also, which I can't remember if I asked for District 2 or not, because this was something that came up recent, but I would like to do a drive up, meet the candidate event, especially because there's so many in District 2, District 3, and District 5. So would you be willing to participate in something like that?
100%.
All right. And then, so basically, it would be meet the candidate, uh, and there'll be all the candidates there that ever wants to participate. And then, basically just drive up, similar, just COVID style, basically, just drive up and, be safe distance, but get to see all the faces of these people. And then also get registered to vote while you're there if you haven't been registered to vote. We want to set that up so that we were bringing that community engagement and that politics to be able to bring that into our neighborhoods, into our communities. So you are willing to do that?
100% willing to do that.
Awesome. And then if anybody watching has a place in District 2 that can hold an event, something like that we can be safe and distance, but have an area that we can drive up and maybe even park, so that way maybe some of the cans can talk to certain people if they want to talk to them. Please reach out to me. And anybody who wants to volunteer, please reach out to me as well. I would like to do this across all the primarily these 3 districts because there are so many. So I would like to do something like that. And if anybody would like to do, provide an avenue, reach out to me. If you'd like to just volunteer, please reach out to me as well. But thank you, Tyrone. I appreciate you coming on. And everybody just share this, like it, and I did ask for this, the last one, but if you would like to be a sponsor for this live stream, I am doing this out of my own time. This is just me by myself. So
you should have told me, E. I would have had a sponsor for you. You should have told me.
Hey, it's still there. But just let me know. My stuff is down there, and then
I'll connect you with one of my guys. I got a lot of small business owners in the community that would love to support something like this.
Yeah, and I'm not doing this for I'm just doing it on my free time, and this is what I'm doing, just to help give this resources out to people. But it takes time, and so but thank you. I appreciate you coming on and just answering all these questions and for everybody participating, and we will be in touch for sure. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it. And I'm going to go ahead and end this broadcast. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.